He was trained to recognize every aircraft in the sky, every flicker of light that moved against the dark. But what he saw that summer night in 1952 didn't belong to anything he'd ever known. The air above Washington felt heavy, pressed down by heat and static. And inside a dim control tower, Captain Edward Ramsey stared at the radar scope, waiting for the soft sweep of green to reveal the calm routine of another midnight shift. Then it happened. The heartbeat of the radar flicked, and 7 bright dots appeared in perfect formation. He thought it was an echo, maybe a temperature inversion, but the dots didn't fade. They hovered. He checked the dials, blinked hard, but they stayed real and silent on the glowing screen. Andrews Tower confirmed no aircraft in the area, and yet the signals pulsed, steady as breath. 11:40 p.m., he wrote in the log. A moment later, the phone began to ring, civilians calling from across the city. Voices trembling, lights over the mall, moving too fast, glowing orange. Colonel Harris entered, his voice clipped but uneasy. Scramble to interceptors. Langley's on standby. He said it only once, that quiet promise to the sky. But from that night on, the dreams came back stronger. The same hum, the same orange light bleeding through the window before dawn. Always moving, always calling. Ramsey tried to ignore it, tried to live like everything was normal. He took a job teaching radar systems in Ohio, bought a small house near the woods, and told himself the past was done. But every few months, something strange would happen. Streetlights would flicker when he drove under them. Radios would burst into static when he walked by, and that hum would return, faint and steady, like a heartbeat buried under the noise of the world. One evening in early autumn, he received a letter. No return address, just a government seal stamped in fading blue. Inside was a single line typed on plain paper. You are still part of the project. He stared at it for a long time, wondering if it was some cruel joke, until he heard the hum again, louder this time, filling the house like an invisible wind. Then the power went out. He stepped outside into the dark. The air was still. Above the trees, the same 7 lights moved silently across the night, drifting in a slow circle. They weren't stars. They weren't planes. They were waiting. He felt the pull and invisible pressure behind his eyes and, for a moment, he couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The light grew brighter until everything dissolved into white. When he awoke, it was morning. He was lying in the field behind his house, dew covering the grass, his clothes damp. His watch frozen at 3:11 a.m. He remembered nothing, but on his wrist there was a small burn in the shape of a circle. Later that day, 2 men in dark suits came to his door. They didn't show badges. One spoke softly, calling him by his rank. Captain Ramsey, we'd like to ask a few questions about your experience in Washington. The other just stood there, eyes hidden behind glasses that reflected everything except his own expression. They led him to a black sedan. The ride was silent except for that faint hum again, coming from somewhere deep inside the car. They stopped at a building that looked like an abandoned warehouse. No signs, no markings. Inside, the air smelled of metal and dust. Down a narrow hallway was a small room with a single light bulb and a reel-to-reel recorder. The man with the glasses turned it on. "Tell us what you remember," he said. Ramsey tried to speak, but his thoughts felt scrambled, like pieces of a dream. "There was light," he said finally, "and sound. Not sound exactly. Vibration, like communication, but not words." They exchanged glances. "Do you believe it was human?" one asked. Ramsey looked down at his hands, still trembling. No, and I don't think it was the first time. They asked him to describe the lights, again how they moved, how they vanished. The missing time, and then they left him alone for nearly an hour. When they returned, they told him everything he'd said was classified. He signed papers he couldn't read clearly, his vision blurred from exhaustion. Before they let him go, the man with the glasses said one last thing. If you ever see them again, don't look directly at them. Just go inside. Pretend you didn't notice. Weeks passed. Life returned to something like normal. But one night, as he sat listening to an old radio broadcast, the signal began to distort. The voice on the program stretched into static, and beneath it, a low tone emerged, the same frequency he'd heard years ago in the cockpit. Then, faintly, another voice layered under it, slow and distant. Speaking English, but not quite human. You were chosen to see. You will remember when it's time. The transmission ended. After that, Ramsey stopped sleeping again. He began writing everything, down dates, times, the color of the lights, the dreams. He mailed a copy to Dr. Hynek, who was now quietly collecting witness accounts that the Air Force refused to explain. Months later, Hynek wrote back a single sentence. "You're not alone in this." The years moved on. Project Blue Book officially closed in 1969, declaring there was no evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, but Ramsey knew better. He'd seen what denial looked like. He'd signed it himself. The official report said nothing about the missing time. Nothing about the radar signatures that defied physics. Nothing about the men in suits who appeared without orders or names. In 1973, during a lecture at a small college in Pennsylvania, Hynek publicly admitted that some cases remained unsolved. Ramsey watched the broadcast alone, the same hum resonating faintly in the background of his living room, as if the signal had followed him through the decades. He turned off the television and walked outside. The night was quiet, but the air carried that same electric charge he remembered from Washington, the moment before something impossible happened. And then he saw them again. 7 lights, higher this time, moving together above the tree line. They pulsed once, twice, then arranged themselves into a pattern, a circle, with one light at the center. The same formation he'd drawn in his sleep for years. He felt no fear now, only a strange calm. He whispered the words he'd written long ago in his report. Objects capable of instant acceleration, silent, luminous, intelligently controlled. The lights began to ascend, one by one, fading into the stars until only the center light remained. It lingered for a heartbeat, then blinked 3 times in a perfect rhythm. Dot, dot, as if answering a question he hadn't asked. The hum grew louder, filling everything, and then it was gone. Engines thundered into the night. 2 F-9 for starfires clawed upward through the thick summer air. Ramsey listened to the radio, the pilot's voices steady until one broke through static. "Control, radar, contact, 2 o'clock. Wait, I see something." Silence. Then a shaken whisper. Whatever it was just shot straight up. No exhaust, no trail, it's gone. Ramsey felt the chill move through him. He'd seen false returns before, but nothing that could hover, dart, and vanish like that. Each blip he plotted drifted directly over restricted airspace, above the Capitol, above the White House, and then disappeared as if swallowed by the sky. By dawn, the lights were gone. By morning, newspapers screamed. Flying saucers buzz Washington jets chase unknown craft. Phones rang non-stop at the Pentagon. and before noon the Air Force reopened Project Blue Book. Later that day, Ramsey sat in a windowless room surrounded by officers and a quiet gray-haired astrophysicist named Dr. Alan Hynek. Invited to assist the Air Force, Hynek listened, skeptical at first, until Ramsey described the radar speeds over 7,000 miles per hour. "Impossible," Hynek murmured. "No aircraft can do that." "That's why we called you, Doctor," Ramsey said. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same hour, same sky. This time Ramsey flew as an observer. The city lights fell away beneath him, and at 11:15 the radar confirmed contact. He looked up through the canopy and saw them soft orange-white orbs gliding in silent formation, moving with purpose, almost alive. "Visual confirmed," he whispered. One broke formation and rushed toward them, a streak of light closing distance faster than thought. "It's right on top of us," the pilot shouted. A white flash swallowed everything. Instruments died. Headsets screamed with static. Then darkness. When Ramsey opened his eyes, the stars were still, the cockpit quiet. The pilot stared ahead, white. 22 minutes missing. No memory. Ground control reported their signal had vanished and reappeared as if time itself had stuttered. Back on the base, under harsh lights, Hynek asked, "You lost 22 minutes. Can you explain?" Ramsey only whispered, "No, sir, but I keep hearing something, a low hum, like it's still inside my head." Days passed. Equipment in the tower malfunctioned. Lights flickered when Ramsey walked by. Dreams invaded his sleep, metallic voices, the same formation of 7 lights repeating in his mind, and a whisper, "You've seen us before." The Air Force filed his report under psychological after effects and transferred him quietly to another base. Hynek kept the notes and later wrote in his findings that certain radar visual incidents remained unexplained, displaying technology beyond known capability. Years blurred together. Project Blue Book went on, cataloging thousands of sightings, most dismissed as weather or misidentification. But for Ramsey, those nights never ended. Sometimes, long after he left the service, he would wake in the dark and see a faint orange glow slipping through his bedroom window. He would rise, heart steady and afraid all at once, stare at the sky and whisper to no one, "I know you're still up there." The next morning, his neighbors found his car still in the driveway, front door open, lights on inside. On his desk was a single page from his old Blue Book file, with a handwritten note at the bottom. "They're not coming. They've always been here." Years later, when those records were finally declassified, investigators noticed that one case file, July 1952, Washington, D.C. was missing every page except the cover sheet. The only notation left was a single word stamped in red, "Unexplained and somewhere." In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world sleeps and the sky hums with electricity, a faint orange glow still moves across the horizon, just like it did in 1950, to waiting for someone new to look up.